It's exciting to welcome Heather Waters and Erin Heisel. Is your screen sharing ready to go?
Yes, I believe so.
Awesome.
All right, it should be. Are you seeing it all right?
It's right there. Look at that. Thank you so much.
Super.
So yeah, well, you have the floor. Welcome to the conference, and thank you so much.
Heather, are you there?
I look frozen. Can you still hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, I cannot see your screen sharing and I look frozen.
Oh dear.
That's not good. All right.
Well, let's see. Maybe I should get us started, and maybe by the time we get a little bit into it, you'll be back in business.
Hopefully.
Okay. So this is a presentation Heather and I are working on. We got an IRB approved study started in its very beginning phases over the course of the last academic year, with the hope that we would have data and stories perhaps to tell you by the time of this conference. But then of course everything moved online and we weren't actually able to conduct the full study. So this is the presentation of what we would like the study to be, with an invitation perhaps for you to share experiences with improvisation and how that affects undergraduate perceptions of community and well-being in your own communities. And perhaps we might inspire someone to run a similar study, and then we could maybe get together, and that would be exciting. So we welcome your comments and your questions, your ideas and experiences as we get to the end of this. So the project background. So this, Heather and I are both faculty members at Adelphi University, which has its main campus on Garden City, in Garden City, Long Island, which is about 18 miles east of New York City. And we are a small liberal arts centric music department that is consciously moving towards a culture of improvisation. So we found over the course of the last year that many of our faculty members are using improvisation, not just in classes like the improv ensemble, where we would of course expect improvisation, but using improvisation in lots of other classes and some perhaps unusual environments as well. And we recognize the benefits of improvisation across the board. So we are looking for ways to maximize opportunities for improvisation across the undergraduate curriculum. And because of this, we desire to know how our students understand and experience improvisation, in particular, if they experience enhanced feelings of well-being and community through improvisation experiences. So we're looking not just, of course, of the many artistic and music technical advances and things like that the students might experience by practicing improvisation, but also particularly how they feel about it, what their thoughts are, what their experiences are, both as individuals and in members of a musical community.
Can you hear me? Okay, I still can't see you, but I can continue. Just
okay, sure, go ahead.
Hold it up in a different window. I don't know what's going on. Okay, so as Erin was saying, that we're looking for these sort of optional experiences outside of what maybe occurs already in classes and settings. We have things like she mentioned, like the improvisation ensemble and other classes. So we're connecting to their perceptions and their experiences of informal improvisation and ways that these contribute to an understanding of the value of flexible, responsive musicking as described by Christopher Small, and the role of improvisation in developing creative musicianship.
Shall I advance the slide?
Yes, please. I can't see that you are, but that's good. I'm assuming that you are. Okay.
Oh, shall I advance the slide again?
Sure, please do.
Okay.
So the purpose of this research is to explore how undergraduate music and music education majors experience these optional improvisation sessions.
And we've included here a picture. This is the Adelphi University Chamber Music Ensemble, which is a class that I teach. And we do explore traditional chamber music and non-traditional chamber music, but we also embrace a culture of improvisation in this class with lots of improvisatory exercises and games. In previous iterations of the semester before this current online situation, we always would perform an improvisation and a graphic score in the concert, including one time where we had the audience create a picture that we then did an improvisation based off in real time in the concert. So these students are able to experience within a class setting how improving together builds our sense of cohesiveness and community in this ensemble. And Heather and I are interested now in what happens when we remove that from the class setting and create optional improvisation settings. So I'm gonna jump ahead here. So we have some guided questions, or some questions that guide our research in this vein, particularly how our students are storying or narrating their perception of their experiences in these informal improvisational settings, so those that are happening outside of our classes, and what benefits and challenges do they experience as a result of these, and of course how they feel about those, how they manage challenge in the moment.
Erin?
And yes.
Excuse me, Erin?
Yes.
We're not seeing the slides. Can you go to present mode or something? We can't see the slides.
I am in screen share and I'm sorry?
You have to go to slide show.
I believe that I am in slideshow mode,
but you need to go so that the slide fills the whole screen. Then you
it does. It is filling my whole screen.
But it's not filling ours, sadly.
Yes, I understand that. Let me tinker around for a moment here. Let's try this again. Is that different for you?
We've got a different slide.
So you could see the slides before, but you see them better now? Is that what you're saying?
We couldn't see the separate slides. We could only see the beginning one.
Ah, I see.
We weren't able to move through it. So
here's our beginning. This is a little bit of the project description that we described. This as well.
No, we've still only got one screen. Still only got the guiding questions.
This is quite strange. Heather, do you want to try this on your end? I am in full screen mode over here, and I am in present mode, so I don't know that there's anything else that I know how to do to address this.
I would love to try, but as soon as you press screen share, everything froze still, and I have the Mac rainbow wheel of death spinning. I can still hear you though. I've never had this happen before. So
yeah.
But as soon as you press to share the slides, it did something funny.
Oh, that looks better.
Okay.
This looks better. I just went out of the screen share and went back into it. Can you, so let's see if I change from this.
See if you can change the slide.
Okay,
Yes.
are you seeing a different slide now with the students on it?
No.
Ah, okay.
Yes.
I don't know why that works differently. I'm not doing, there's no different setting on my computer than there was a moment ago, but I'm glad it's working now. We're improvising all the time here, aren't we? Oh, Heather, are you able to see this any better on your end?
Well, I can see the PowerPoint that I'm looking at from my desktop, but I still can't see anyone in the Zoom. They're all frozen. So it's fine. As long as they can see the slide, I'll keep talking when I'm supposed to keep talking.
Perfect. I will finish reviewing our guiding questions, and then we will jump to slide 8. So we're also wondering, I'm so sorry everyone about this strange turn of events, but you know, we're all improvising everything right now, so we'll ask
You're doing great, Erin. You're doing great.
Sense
Wonderful.
of humor with us. So we're curious about how these improvisation experiences impact students' growth as musicians, and if it contributes to an overall sense of their well-being. So not just their well-being or their sense of their well-being as musicians in our musical community, but from a broader perspective as well. And then from this, we're wondering if we can make a connection to enhancing the traditional aspects of our music and music education programs. And then, of course, what sort of feelings of community do these sections contribute to the feelings of community in our department? We're a small department and quite a tight community anyway, but of course, it's always nice to feel a little closer to your compatriots, so to speak. So we're on, Heather, I'm on the slide with the literature review, and we have a more comprehensive bibliography at the end of this presentation. If anyone would like a copy of that, we'll be glad to accommodate that request, but we'll just speak very briefly now about these 5 sources that are contributing quite a bit to the way that Heather and I are thinking about formulating this study. So Heather, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, so as you can tell from the title, The Berger and Cooper is a study of young children and their parents, and that's more the background that I've come from. And this has been interesting working with Erin because we've discovered a lot of things in our own sort of bubbles of research that we're very familiar with, and she has her own sort of little bubble, and there's a lot of things that are the same thing but are called different names. So it's been interesting to find the connection. So the early childhood play-based research is kind of the perspective that I'm coming from. And this particular study was important to us because it speaks a lot about silencing behaviors, the act that critical comments and critiquing can have on silencing young children's musical play behaviors. So we're making applications beyond early childhood.
Exactly. And so I did my PhD at NYU. David Elliott was one of my mentors, and a lot of his work has guided so much of my thinking about philosophy of music performance in particular, and play studies and philosophy of play and theoretical conceptions of play, which is my main research interest. And in considering his work, we have to really think about this article he wrote, Music as Knowledge, and this idea that musical experiences are very important for the creation of knowledge that participants experience, and not just creation of technical knowledge or music history knowledge, things like this, but that self-knowledge and knowledge of community is just as important. And we feel very strongly about that. Another high five to the NYU community. Hey, Marissa, high-fiving you across the way, is this Fidelibus dissertation in music therapy. And what he's talking a lot about here is the community that is formed in the music therapy scenario, which of course takes a lot from improvisation experiences. We don't intend to equate that what we are doing is in any way a music therapy experience. We are not music therapists or clinicians in any way, but we see parallels here, and we see also connections to play studies that talks about changes in cognition and changes in perceptions of self. So we are drawing these parallels here from a theoretical lens and grounding this work that we're doing in that way.
And the Nachmanovich has been very influential as well. This idea of educing things, bringing out what's latent as opposed to training as a form of education, and the strong connections that he makes between improvisation and play, because I think both Erin and I agree that improvisation and play, there's a lot of overlap in the literature, and there's also a lot of overlap in terms of the actual experiences that people have when they're participating in improvisation experiences. So.
And then I'll just speak briefly about Kenny Werner. Kenny Werner, of course, incredible musician and improviser. And what strikes me so much about Effortless Mastery is not just his own very clear and very beautiful writing about his own improvisation experiences, but connections that he makes as a master clinician in the world of improvisation with, and I want to make a connection to your presentation earlier today, June, where you talk about music and spirituality, because this is something that comes up in Kenny's work as well, and this idea that these very meaningful experiences that we may have improvising in these improvised communities are things that we might story through the lens of spirituality. And so this is something that I certainly think a lot about, and to make a connection to a presentation that's happening tomorrow, and the idea of mindfulness and this belief that improvisation really truly is an exercise in mindfulness and presence. And so there's that connection there as well.
So we're doing this as a qualitative narrative inquiry. Jarrett said he loves narrative inquiry, and I love narrative inquiry as well for some of the reasons he already mentioned, which are I feel like it levels the possible divide between researcher and researched, and really highlights the voices of the participants than some other approaches might. So we're doing a narrative inquiry. So far we have 7 students who are participating, and then when we can actually resume this, hopefully there'll be a few more when we can meet in person. So as we mentioned, we are basing this around some optional improvisations held outside of class times, and we're really embracing this idea of the students leading this. We're not coming in with a particular prompt or anything like this. It's very free form, very open-ended, and any sort of sound producing instruments or objects are all welcome.
Darren, I'll add to that. When we did do one of our improvisation settings in the fall, and we had not just traditional instruments in the room and traditional instruments that students brought, but we had a variety of play instruments from the music education program. And then of course we opened it up using a John Cage sort of model, that anything that you want to use in the room to make sound contributes to that improvisation experience. So if you want to play the music stand by, you turn it a little bit like this and you go, that is a sound that becomes part of our environment that we can play with. And with the hope that freeing it like this might allow students, particularly singers who might be new to improvisation and feel uncomfortable singing and using their voice in that way, that they can come anyway and still experience improvisation and this feeling of community in a way that will feel more comfortable and more open for what they are prepared to contribute.
Okay, so in terms of the data that we're collecting interviews along the way, which we're going to transcribe and all that stuff. We can get into more of that if we have more time, but I think we're going to move forward a little bit. So here are our sample interview questions.
So we just want to look at, first of all, some very sort of basic ground questions. How many improvisations did you intend? Why did you want to? And tell us about it. But then getting into a little more the meat of it. How would they story their experience? Did they experience changes in themselves? Did they experience changes related to their involvement or challenges related to that? How did they feel about themselves or their sense of well-being? Did they feel a sense of community? And also with allowing space in the interview process for students to speak freely. So, and then they can guide the interview process in the same way that they guided the improvisation setting.
Okay, so when we can actually have more of these improvisation sessions, we are video recording them, transcribing all of that as well. So in terms of the data analysis, we're following loosely Creswell steps in narrative research along with some others, but kind of approaching this in a circular spiral kind of non-linear way, which means you're restoring, you're revisiting, and it keeps adding layer upon layer as you progress over time.
So to date, we held 2 improvisations in the end of the fall semester, in part to sort of test the interest in the project. The first was quite well attended. That's one where we had 7 students. We played almost nonstop for about 90 minutes with different students sort of taking the lead based on the instrument that they were playing or the ideas that they had. It was really a lot of fun. The second happened during exam week and was not as well attended, but that probably had something to do with it being inadvertently scheduled against an exam that many of our students were required to participate in. So we do think that with some careful scheduling of this in the future, when we are again in person and can do this, that we will have a large enough research group that we can run the study successfully and get some interesting data and interesting stories that we can share from that. And this is our more general bibliography. We're happy to share this with any of you if you like. And finally, we would love to have some discussion here. We'll take, of course, any questions or comments you may have on our work as it is in this paused moment, but we would also like to hear about improvisation in your institutions or in your lives. If you have any data or interest in conducting a study like this about student growth, community, and senses of well-being as connected to improvisation experiences, etc. So thanks for having us.